فعله في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره، وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يداه، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك عن قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا، وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مضلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أرى مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك. فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إليه والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل، فارحم عبدك الجاهل، فارحم عبدك الجاهل، وجد علي بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك، مجري الفلك، مسخر الرياح، فالق الإصباح، ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق، باسط الرزق، فالق الإصباح، بالجلال والإكرام. والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى، تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادل، ولا شبيه يشاكل، ولا ضير يعاضد. قهر بعزته الأعزة، وتواضع لعظمته العظمى، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي، ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصي، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة محوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا، وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق باب، ولا يرد سائل، ولا يحيب آمل. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين، وينجي الصالحين، ويرفع المستضعفين، ويضع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين، مبير الظالمين، مدرك الهاربين، نكال الظالمين، صريح المستصرحين، موضع حاجات الطالبين، معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وغمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا، وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك، وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى، وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين، ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأحي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين. وصل على سبتي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، ومحمد بن علي باقر العلوم، وجعفر بن محمد الصادق، وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم، وعلي بن موسى الرضا، ومحمد بن علي الجواد التقي، وعلي بن محمد الهادي النكي، والحسن بن علي الأسكري، والحجة القائم المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر، وحفه بملائكتك المقربين، وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المن به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، وقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، وأضيب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبذر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه، وسلطان حق تظهره، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
कीबोर्ड पे शक मुझे अच्छा محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Hello, Grandpa. 7:50. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على
ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم من حين عداوتهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وقل ربي زدني علما. آمنا بالله وصدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Respected elders, my dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our fast on this wonderful Friday of the holy month of Ramadan, which could be the last Friday. And as we are in the final moments of this day, which is indeed considered as the day of the celebration, day of the Eid for the believers. And in terms of seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's proximity, Friday is a very instrumental day as we are completing this day. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our major and minor sins, Ya Allah. O Allah, accept our du'as, our a'mal, which we were able to perform last night and throughout the holy month of Ramadan, Ya Allah. O Allah, bless us with the assistance, bless us with the opportunity to pray, to fast, to perform maximum worship, and especially to read, understand, and act upon the teachings of Quran during rest of the days of month of Ramadan, and make this as a practice throughout our life, Ya Allah. For the acceptance of our du'as, for the forgiveness of our sins, for the forgiveness of our deceased family members, and for the hastening and reappearance of Imam of our time, please recite a loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Brothers and sisters, yesterday we discussed this important commandment of Amir al-Mu'mineen, his recommendation in regards to the knowledge, the categories of knowledge. One point, the final point, which I did not have time to reflect upon, is a very beautiful dua, Ta'qibat Salatul Asr. First of all, it is highly recommended that we should not get up from our salat without asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without glorifying Him, without asking Him for something. Because that shows that as we have established the connection with Allah, now we are receiving His mercy. So the connection which was established is fruitful. It is very similar to the example if someone is given an access to the treasures after going through many, many difficulties, for instance, going through a scavenger hunt. So you are here and there in jungles and in the seas and in the mountains. And finally, when you reach to the treasure, you do not take anything and you return back. Salat is ascension of a believer. So in the state of salat, a person has secluded himself or herself from the attachments of this world and has raised his or her status lofty enough that he is in the proximity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When now you are departing from that journey, you are coming back from that ascension, you need to bring something. Therefore, it is highly recommended that a person should do some ta'qibat. And we have a few phrases, few common du'as, which you can find anywhere on du'as.org or in the small booklets, Taqibatul Salat. So, among the du'as of after every salat, Salatul Asr has a wonderful du'a in which in the first portion we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by seeking His forgiveness. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Astaghfirullah alladhi la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum ar-Rahmanur Rahim dhul jalali wal ikram. وأسأله أن يتوب علي عبد توبة ذليل خاضع فقير بائس مسكين مستكين. لا يملك لنفسه نفعا ولا ضرا ولا موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. So this is the first part. If you have memorized this part, it's excellent to recite. But if you have not, then I would say that at least read the next part. That is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prevent us. First is asking Him to bless us with few opportunities, with few blessings. But in the second part, we are asking, oh Allah, help us to be away from these vices. Allahumma inni, and what are these vices? What are these evil habits? Allahumma inni as'aluka min nafsin la tashba. Allahumma inni as'aluka min nafsin la tashba. Wa min ilmin la yanfa. اللهم إني أسألك اليسر بعد العسر والفرج بعد الكرب والرخاء بعد الشدة اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. So among these phrases, two phrases are very important to reflect upon. The first one is اللهم إني أسألك من نفس لا تشبع. Oh Allah, keep me away from a nafs which does not get content. So it is always looking, it's a greedy soul, greedy nafs, always looking for more and more and more. So asking the contentment and asking Allah to prevent our souls from a state where the soul becomes greedy towards materialistic possessions. That is very important. وَمِنْ عِلْمٍ لَا يَنْفَعُ. And oh Allah, prevent me from the knowledge which is of no benefit. So it is a dua which we need to recite every day after Salatul Asr at least. That oh Allah, how important it is that Imam is saying, I have spoken enough yesterday to make this very clear that Islam is all for the knowledge. I have spoken about the first few verses which are revealed, and I have mentioned yesterday that I could not at least find any religion which has so much importance and emphasis upon acquiring knowledge, acting upon knowledge, the quality of knowledge. All these things are given. The reason why I am mentioning this today is sometimes it has happened, and I personally have seen, I was personally involved in some examples where, for instance, in the society, a school or a college or at a workplace, a believer is forced to learn something which is not in line with the beliefs of that believer. So, but it is a requirement of the curriculum, or if it is the requirement of, for instance, school curriculum or office work ethics or training. So so the situations were escalated to ulama. Sometimes I personally was involved in some of these discussions where, with a principal or an employer or with an HR manager, I had this conversation that it is not in line of our religion, and the argument comes back, oh, that means Islam does not endorse to acquire knowledge. So, so how they fabricate things, how they intertwine. Sometimes out of ignorance, many of the times I figured out that they were not educated enough. For instance, very clear example. For instance, they want to teach the music to a student in the school, and you want to have the exception or exemption for your child to be taught a music which is haram to be played. So you come up with the argument and they say, oh, that means that you are depriving your child of an education or a learning opportunity. So it needs to be very clear, and I hope that all of you are well aware that playing music is something else, alaykum salam, and the education of music is another thing. So what usually taught in the school is how to play the instruments, for instance. So there is a fine line that how a society defines a knowledge, or education, a knowledge. Not only the information, the education has its own definition, and that needs to be in line with the human, social, religious, moral values. So you just cannot, in a vacuum, create that. For instance, I like this education because it's very good, so I need to impose this on everyone. Maybe for others' beliefs, it's not in line, but it is in contradiction. So the important thing is, so sometimes I have suggested, for instance, if you really want to promote that, for instance, swimming. This is another example. So the schools that do not have the opportunity to have a separate swimming pools for boys and the girls, and um, our youth, they are in a situation where they want to swim, but these swimming pools are not segregated for male gender and female gender, and sometimes it is imposed by the school. So you need to tell them that we are not against the physical education or physical activity. So all we are asking is that it has to be in line with our religious and moral values. So even if you do not have, you cannot force me. Then I am all for the sports or the physical activity. Maybe I can play basketball. I can play, for instance, another sports, football, for instance. So, but we need to know that our boundary line is that we should not engage ourselves in learning something which is just a piece of information, which has no benefit or value for human beings and for the society in general, especially as the Islamic explanation and description of Islamic moral and educational system. So this was one point which I wanted to make clear. Now, the next phrase, as I mentioned yesterday, I have on purpose omitted the Arabic. So it's a topic which really requires to have a lengthy discussion. And as I mentioned, um, when I started my presentations like a week ago, I mentioned that we will be discussing a few very important topics. Among them, tonight, very important topic is writing a will. What is the importance of the will, and why should we write? And tomorrow, I will speak about a topic which is also very important to discuss. Alaykum salam. So first, let's see what Amirul Mu'mineen is saying. Oh, my child, when I noticed I was of goodly age, I am growing older, and I noticed I was increasing in weakness, the physical weakness. Naturally, we is saying, I hasten with my will for you and wrote down prominent points of it. In case death overtook before I devolve to you and what I have in my heart, or in case my wit be affected as my body has been affected. So Amir al-Mu'mineen in general speaking about a recommendation which Islam has in Quran. So I have three major questions which all of us we should need to have in our minds, no matter we are 60 years old, 80 years old, or we are 10 years old or 15 years old. So I will try to analyze tonight that how important it is for the people from all group of ages to think about composing a will, or at least to have something as a bequest or a will. So three major questions. Is it mandatory or optional? Is there a choice or no? It's a mandatory in Islam to write a will. What is the best time, in what age group you need to be to write a will? Usually we think, oh, I am still 75 years old, I still have 15 years to live, so I don't need to write the will. And then if I am planning to write a will, how to compose that? What are the basic points? It's a lengthy topic to discuss. It requires a workshop that we all sit together, we compose a will, we help each other. What are the matters? But I'm giving you an idea in this lecture format for next 30 minutes we have. So this is the verse of Holy Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In Surah Al-Baqarah. كتب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين. It's very important verse. Prescribed for you when death approaches any of you and he leaves behind any property is that he make a bequest for his parents and relatives and honorable manner an obligation on the God-fearing. So this verse of Quran, if you see, it's a science how to deduce rulings from Quran and Sunnah. In fiqh or in terminology, it is called ijtihad. The term is ijtihad. A mujtahid, what does mujtahid do? Mujtahid takes out the rulings from Quran and Hadith and from Aql and Ijma and all other tools which we have for ijtihad, how to infer the rulings from Quran and Hadith. The reason why I'm saying that many of you know about the verse which speaks about the obligation of the fasting. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. So kutiba is a verb which ulama sometimes they have explained alaykum salam, that it refers to an action which is mandatory. Kutiba alaykum siyam, that fasting is made mandatory upon you or it is prescribed on you. Very similarly, does that mean in comparison to that, kutiba alaykum in taraka khayran al wasiyah? So is it mandatory to leave your wasiyah behind you or not? So here is the question. How we can answer that? We have various ahadith because Quran speaks about the general principles, and as per the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, the jurisprudential school of Ahlul Bayt, we do not do ijtihad when there is a clear verse, unless that verse was abrogated, mansukh. But if a verse is there and it is applicable, then you cannot produce a ruling against that. But the limitation of the verse can be expanded or can be contracted based on the riwayat of Ahlul Bayt, based on the necessity of the time. And this whole process calls ijtihad. And that requires a very profound understanding of Islam. Do not think that you would start reading, for instance, Quran in English and Usul al-Kafi in English, even Arabic. If you read Quran in Arabic and Usul al-Kafi in Arabic, now you are a mujtahid, you can deduce the ruling. No. There are many other sciences involved in ijtihad. Therefore, we see that mujtahideen usually who give fatwa, alaykum salam, they are well qualified, and some of them they have studied like over 30 years, 35 years. So it's a lifelong journey to be capable to deduce the ruling from Quran and Hadith and then give fatwa. Therefore, when we look at the Hadith of the Prophet to learn about the importance of writing a will, he says, the one who dies without leaving a will dies the death of ignorance. So it's an expression which we can see in some other hadiths as well. For instance, man mata walam ya'rif imam zamanihi mata mitat al-jahiliyyah. The one who dies while without having knowledge of the imam of his time has died in the death of ignorance. Very similar expression is given for the someone who dies without leaving a will behind that person. So it shows the importance. And when the time of ignorance comes, or the ignorance comes, ulama they have referred that it speaks about the time before Islam, pre-prophetic, pre-Islamic era. So there is no values in the society. So we need to be very careful that it is so important. Second, the Prophet is having another hadith. In addition to some other hadiths of Ahlul Bayt, it's not suitable for a believer to sleep before placing his or her will under the pillow. So it shows that a believer should sleep and the will should be prepared and has to be under the pillow. So it's an expression to let us know the importance of writing a will. So now, based on this Quranic verse and this prophetic tradition, in fact, two of the traditions which I have mentioned, we have several other traditions of 5th Imam, 6th Imam speaking about this very important recommendation. We can understand it is of utmost importance, but it's not mandatory as we have Salah. So, but in some cases, it becomes wajib. What are those cases? Anyone can help. A question. When writing a will becomes mandatory on someone, any clue? It's highly recommended, but sometimes it becomes wajib. One example is exactly we have missed obligatory actions. Hajj was wajib on me, I did not perform. So it's a wajib on me to at least let my child know that you need to take care of that. But more important, if I had debt, if I have something which belongs to you, I borrowed it from you, I am using it. This, for instance, this ring, I borrowed it from you and I am using it. Only Allah knows when I'm going to die. But if I die, my son will think that it belongs to me. And they will distribute it as per the recommendation in my will. Therefore, you can understand how important it is when Prophet says that write your will and place it under your pillow means that take care of your affairs, especially which are connected to other people. So, and the second reason, while living in this country, especially, or the Western countries, we need to know that if someone does not make a will, the belongings and the inheritance is distributed most of the times on the basis of the law of land. Sometimes there are huge taxes, and the offsprings and the children, they don't get much. Government takes its share, IRS takes its share, they need to take their share. So you did not want that in your lifetime. You wanted to keep that for yourself and you wanted to give it to your children, or you wanted this to be utilized in the best of the ways. But you did not make the will, or sometimes people have no heir. For instance, a person did not have surviving children. So the will be distributed as per the guidelines of the state or federal guidelines. So many of the times it has happened that a lot of resources were wasted because a person who died did not make a proper will about the amwal. So states and government, the federal laws are not in line with the Islamic recommendation. I will briefly touch upon that. And also, you really don't want that in your lifetime, that someone distributes your wealth in a way which you don't please with. So now, two things I have mentioned that first of all, usually it's not mandatory, but it is highly recommended. And second of all, to avoid the complications of tax and the laws. So now, if we have planned to write a will, many of the times, I still have 20 minutes. I really got scared. Every day, I run out of time. صلوا على محمد وعلى آله. So, 13. Oh. I was guessing, okay, I was guessing 20 minutes. Thank you. So, okay, so one thing which I commonly have realized after talking to many individuals in the community, especially in the United States, oh, Moulana, it's very complicated. It involves a lot of recommendation. No, brothers and sisters, it's not complicated at all. Writing a will is as easy as writing a letter to someone. But if you do not write, the consequences, the religious consequences, they are very frightening, but also the legal consequences, as I just have referred to. So you need to make a will, but as I have said that since here there are some laws of the lands as well, it would be the best to take the advice of a lawyer or someone who is expert in that. There are many will-making softwares as well, free and paid. You can take help of them, but it's not a rocket science. It's easy. How to begin? The first thing which is highly recommended that you give the testimony of beliefs. It's our faith, our belief that when a believer passes away, in fact, we have a hadith which are referring to any individual who dies, they will see Imam al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the time of the death. So a believing man or woman will have the assistance. So that is the time where we need to be reminded of our belief and aqidah. Therefore, one of the acts we do after the burial is talqeen. We speak about fundamental core beliefs of Islam. Who is your God? Who is your creator? What is your book? Who is your imam? What is your belief about the day of the judgment? Usuluddin in a nutshell. So we need to remind them. So by writing this will, as I am testifying, oh Allah, I bear witness. These are my beliefs. Second thing is that a person should ask Allah's forgiveness by asking Him. There is a simple dua which can be found in many books of ahadith. It's recommended that it's a very comprehensive dua, few lines. If a person really wants to write a will, it would be the best if someone can incorporate this paragraph in the beginning of the will. The translation can also be found online. The dua before writing a will. Allahumma fatir as-samawati wal ard. So if you go, Allahumma inni a'hadu ilayka fi dar ad-dunya inni ashhadu, the second line, that in this dunya I bear witness, la ilaha illallah ant wahdaka la sharika lak. You are the only Lord, Creator. One Muhammadan sallallahu alayhi wa sallam abdika wa rasulik wa anna al-jannata haq, nara haq, ba'atha haq, hisaba haq. So all these parts of beliefs are mentioned in that. So to begin with, the best is to remind ourselves of our basic beliefs about Allah, about the Prophet, angels, hereafter, Mizan, and also asking Allah, Ilahi. So, Allahumma ya uddati inda kurbati wa sahib inda shiddati wa ya waliyu ni'mati ilahi wa ilaha abai. La takilni ila nafsi tarfata aynin abada. This is one of the best du'as, one sentence, no matter you are dying or you are living. So, in fact, it is more helpful when we are living. Allahumma la takilni ila nafsi tarfata aynin abada. Oh Allah, do not leave me alone even for a blink of an eye, even for that duration. Do not leave me alone to the people. Do not leave me alone to myself. Oh Allah, always keep yourself attached to me and me attached to you. فَإِنَّكَ إِن تَكِلْنِي إِلَى نَفْسِي أَقْرَبُ مِنَ الشَّرِّ. Because if you left me alone on myself, then I am closer to shar. And then there are some du'as. وَأَبْعَدُ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ. And I will be far away from the khair. فَآنِسْ فِي الْقَبْرِ. And be a companion and source of comfort and tranquility in my grave, in my loneliness. وَاجْعَلْ لِي أَهْدًا يَوْمَ أَلْقَاكَ مَنْشُورًا. So this is one of the du'as to begin with. And then these are 7 main points to be included in the will. What are these 7 points? So the first thing is a person needs to have in the will is outstanding acts of worship. So, and one thing which needs to be clarified that you cannot leave your salat without praying in this world on your offspring or the heirs. So, for instance, I did not pray, God forbid, for 10 years. I was not practicing Islam or whatever reason. For many, many years I did not. I have realized today I have become a good mu'min, and I heard this in the lecture that I need to write the will, so I'm going to write the will. Oh, my son, when I pass away, pay this money to someone to offer prayers on my behalf. It's not enough. You need to begin today to make up your missed prayers, missed fast, missed hajj. Fasting, when it becomes mandatory. There is a fiqh ruling, maybe some of you might have in your minds, and you need to check with your marja. The question which usually comes up that it is a mandatory on the eldest male son to make up the missed fast prayers, hajj of the deceased father. Ulama, they have different rulings about mother and father, different rulings about fasting, hajj and salah. You need to check with your mother. So there are many, many options. Some ulama, they have explained, no, it's only mandatory on the eldest male child. It is mandatory only for the father, not the mother. It is only mandatory for salat, not the fasting. So you need to check all. But if you make the will, then it has a difference. So again, the benefit of making the will. So you are writing, for instance, today I have, for instance, 90 days of missed prayers. But at the same time, you need to try to offer your missed prayers. So next day you will arrange, you will say, now it is 89 now. So in that way, you are continuously progressing your will. Hajj. So sometimes there is an ambiguity in the minds of the people that my father passed away, my mother passed away, and they did not perform Hajj. It is mandatory on them. We need to understand Hajj becomes a wajib when a person has capacity to do that. For instance, the financial, health capacity, or whatever other capacities Islam has. Taklif, so when taklif becomes mandatory on that person, if that person was oblivious at that time, and it is one of the greatest sins which is mentioned in riwayat. If a person deliberately, after becoming a Hajj wajib, does not perform that, so Hajj becomes wajib, and deliberately that person does not perform that. Person had money, person had opportunity, and could go, but cannot take off from the work, or some of the reasons which will not impact him drastically. Just few ordinary things. It's difficult to take off from the work, but you can plan for that. You can, for instance, endure some of the financial loss for that. So those are not the reasons. Because hadith is a very scary that it will be given an option to that person after the death or while dying, that you cannot die a Muslim. You need to choose. You want to die a Christian or a Jew or a non-Muslim. Because Hajj was mandatory on you and you did not. But the Hajj, when it becomes mandatory, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. That if Hajj becomes وَلِلَّهِ, for Allah, لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى الْحِجُّ الْبَيْتِ, the Hajj of Baytul Haram becomes mandatory. Man istata'a, when istata'a becomes mandatory, obligatory on that person. So any outstanding acts of worship which a person could not make up during the lifetime but had sincere intention, that needs to be noted in the will. And as I just have mentioned, if you had, for instance, you borrowed a book, how important it is that see the system of Islam. I just borrowed a book from you to read, a laptop, for instance, or a ring. I need to make it, record it in my will, how prepared I am for my death. That today I borrowed this pen, this book from someone. You need to return that if I die, because these are the belongings of the people. I, if you do not make a will, they will distribute it, and then you have haqqun nas on your shoulder, on your neck. And then debts, because debts are rights of the people, hukukun nas. And you know, hukukun nas are very important to be taken care of, especially when a person is departing from this world. We have recommendations that, okay, you have tried your best to fulfill your hukukullah. Allah will forgive. He is merciful. But hukukun nas, the rights of the people, they need to be taken care in this world. So if you have taken a debt from someone, borrowed money from someone, or you want to give some money you have promised to someone, then make it recorded in the will. Religious dues, homes and zakat. It is the best to take care during your lifetime. In fact, today during Friday sermon, Sayyid Wahidi explained a hadith, excellent hadith, that when a person made a will of the distribution of a huge estate, and after the death, Prophet distributed that, and when people are walking with the Prophet, Prophet picks up a date, half date, eaten date in his hand, and says that if this person who had made this bequest of all this estate has given this amount of date in his lifetime with his hand, it was better than to give all this estate. So it is best to give in your lifetime, but you still, it's one of the recommendations that you make a will to the donations as well. But religious dues, homes and zakat, which are mandatory, it is mandatory, therefore a will becomes mandatory. Then assets and money which you want to be given to the people, so sometimes it belongs to them, but sometimes you want them to do that. So now number 6 and 7 are important, but these are connected to the execution of the will. When you write composition of the will, So you need to appoint an executor. Therefore, I have said it's the best to take the advice of an expert that who can be your executor. Usually, your wasi is anyone baligh, sane, Muslim, trustworthy. It can be your family member as well. And one last thing, and I will conclude, that making your will for 1/3 of your wealth, your belonging, is permissible. But 2/3 of your belongings, your assets, they need to be distributed as per the guideline. And this is my last word, that many of the times when you see these charts, this one, when you see these charts, you get scared. How I would distribute what is going to be for my father, what is going to be for my mother, husband, wife. So, since we have at least one lawyer I know is in the room, so he can correct me, that if you write in your will that this will has to be executed based on the Islamic teachings and my faith and belief, now it is a binding for the executor to execute based on that. And after your death, they can apply all those formulas. If during your lifetime you are scared to do that and you don't want to do that, that how many percentage goes to who, but you can generally write that this will has to be executed based on the teachings of Islam and school of Ahlul Bayt and as per the discretion of the executor. So here are some guidelines. Inshallah, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to understand the teachings of Islam and act upon those teachings, Ya Allah. O Allah, accept our fast today and the fast of the month of Ramadan, and bless us with the insight to read, understand, and act upon the teachings of Islam. I will conclude by requesting you all to recite the Surah Fatiha with 3 times Surah Ikhlas for all of your marhumin of the sponsors family tonight, for Mujtahideen, Shuhada, Sulaha, Ulama, with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم